Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time. If you are calling in for the first time, I have a suggestion for you because this is going to be a little bit different call today. If you want a detailed explanation of the turnkey program that we've established, one that I will be touching on today, I would suggest you go to our call of February 15th. And second, if you really want to understand what's going on in this country, what's going on in the world, you need to understand the central bank system. And I would strongly suggest you go to our call of March 1st because you will get a history that you are probably kind of unaware of. Frankly, the individuals that have listened to that call have contacted me, and they said they were literally shocked at the information. And I said, well, it's right there. You can Google it for yourself, and you can see that everything I discussed in that call is what's going on. Also, if you do like these calls, I would kindly ask you to go ahead and click the subscribe button, so you'll get the calls automatically each week. And if you'd be kind enough, share it with other individuals that you think might be of interest. As I said, this is going to be a little bit different call today. What I'm going to be discussing today is the de-dollarization, both internationally and domestically, of the United States Federal Reserve note. And the reason this is important is because when the dinar and some of these other pre-valued currencies do revalue globally, we're going to be going to the bank to exchange for what? The U.S. Federal Reserve note. So you need to understand exactly what that means and why, in my opinion, you need to get your money out of the banks and it work just about anywhere else. So let's get started. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather large holders of these currencies ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. Of course, for those of us that have dinar and these other currencies, our most relevant issue is the window for the reinstitution of the dinar globally. In my view, it could happen at any time, although it makes the most sense that it would not revalue or reinstitute until the end of or near the end of Ramadan, which of course is in the month of April. The reason for that being is under the Islamic faith, profit earned during Ramadan should be given to charity or back to the banks or to your mosque. And so a lot of individuals will either hold off on exchanging for the new currencies. So for that reason, this might get held up through Ramadan. Now, Ramadan started on March 22nd, ends on April 21st. So we're still looking at the month of April as certainly the reinstitution, if not both the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar globally. Now, this would be an excellent time for us. Interestingly enough, over the last 100 years, the reinstitution and revaluation of major currencies have happened in 3 months, January, April, and September. Has largely to do with countries operating either on a fiscal basis, either on a calendar basis, or a fiscal year starting in April. But for those of us that have currencies, April would be a superb date because that would mean that no taxes would be due until July 15th, which would allow us two things. First, the ability to hold the currency if it comes out of a low float and allow it to appreciate. And second, revaluation in April allows us to compel the Treasury Department to confirm in writing as to the actual tax status of the revaluation within a trust. There is some differing opinion on that, so again, April or the beginning of any quarter would be the optimal time for a reinstitution and revaluation. Now let's get back to the subject again, which is the de-dollarization. That is the removal of the U.S. dollar in terms of its purchasing power and in terms of its use as a reserve currency globally. And again, that's important to us because we will be exchanging into the U.S. dollar. Now let's talk first globally what's going on. Well, first I want to touch on the creation of the BRICS nations. Now there are several various groups or confederations of nations which are trying to move out of the Swiss system and stop the use of the U.S. dollar as their reserve currency, using either the ruble or the yuan as their reserve currency, or using their own currencies within the group as their reserve currencies. So the BRICS nations, for example, incorporate Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And these countries would be able to, each of these countries would be able to use the currencies of the other 5 countries as part of their reserve currency, eliminating, again, the U.S. dollar. Now, interestingly enough, both Kenya and Venezuela seek entry as a BRICS nation as well. So there is a momentum against the use of the U.S. dollar as a Federal Reserve currency. Now, that's also the case in Iraq. Those of you that have dinar or have at the very least been following what's going on in Iraq is that they're involved in a massive move to de-dollarize, not just because they want to institute their own currency, but because they want to move away from the U.S. dollar, and probably even the SWIFT system to some degree. There is talk of the fact that Iraq is now part of the Arab Monetary Fund, or is becoming a member of that, as part of the Buna system, which is within the SWIFT system. But Iraq is now accepting the yuan for payment of oil, and this is particularly important from the standpoint of the United States because up to this point, the sale of oil from Iraq has been done in U.S. dollars, with that reserve being held by the Federal Reserve Bank. So oil being sold in the yuan means that they will be circumventing utilization of the Federal Reserve Bank, and over time they'll be able to deplete what reserves are in that bank. So we're seeing the de-dollarization there. So let's talk also about some corruption that's still prevalent in Iraq with regard to the provisional 3-0 currency. Now, of course, the good news for us is, on the one hand, the de-dollarization technically is not a good omen for the country, but the de-dollarization will result in the reinstitution of the dinar, so that those of us that do, in fact, hold dinar are going to be in a position to enrich themselves, even though they will be exchanging into the U.S. dollar. But I want to talk about the corruption with regard to the dinar and the dollar. There's the long play and there's the short play. Now, the long play has been going on probably for longer than a decade. In anticipation of the 3-0 provisional dinar one day reinstituting and revaluing globally at a substantially higher rate, individuals and groups have been trying to smuggle the 3-0 provisional dinar out of the country. Now, this involves laundering the money through presumably legitimate entities like central banks, hedge funds, private investment groups, and the like. And their objective, of course, is to hoard the provisional 3-0 currency, hold it in these sort of innocuous accounts, and then go in and exchange it once the currency revalues. Now, some of this money was literally pilfered out of the country, and one of the functions of the Paris Club was to collect as much of this as possible. They're still saying that as much as 1 trillion 3-0 provisional dinars floating around out there. That's bad news, but they're doing as much as they can to try to recover that. Now, the short play would be a couple of things. One would be basically like an arbitrage. Now, a currency arbitrage is a classic Forex strategy. It's a strategy where you simultaneously buy and sell a currency. You buy from one entity, sell it simultaneously to another entity. Now, entity A is selling it at a lower price than entity B. So by purchasing it from A and simultaneously selling it to B, you're making a profit on the spread. Well, they're doing that in country as well. Individuals can go to the bank, purchase U.S. dollars for 1,300 dinar, and they can turn right around and sell it on the black market for 1,500 dinar. So they're making a spread. Now, why would individuals purchase dinar on the black market at 1,500 dinar when they can buy it from the bank at 1,300 dinar? Most likely because they're nefarious individuals. They may be international people that are just trying to ferret the currency out of the country, once again, to exchange it. There's another little short-term play going on now that there are outbound flights leaving Iraq. Now, they do say, well, you have to purchase your flight ticket in dinar. But when you are purchasing a ticket for an outbound flight from Iraq, you're able to purchase up to 7,000 USD so that you can, make sales and purchases or at least function outside of the country. So what individuals are doing is they're purchasing as much of the USD as they can afford. Then they fail to board the flight. Then they turn right around and sell the USD in country at a profit, utilizing the spread. Their net profit is the spread less the cost of the plane fare. So this is the stuff that's still going on in Iraq, but again, it's happening because of the de-dollarization, and if you are the holder of the currency, you're very much interested in this de-dollarization. Now, there's some other things going on that we need to discuss. One of them is the fractional banking system. And again, we're exchanging into the U.S. dollar, so that's why I suggested early in the call that you go to our call of March 1st to see the background information on the central bank, how it functions. But now, this is my opinion, but I look at the fractional banking system as basically a Ponzi scheme. If a private entity attempted to operate the way our banking system operates, they would go to jail. The way the fractional banking system works is you go to the bank, you give them, say, $1. They're able to leverage that dollar to purchase another $10 from the Federal Reserve Bank, money which they presumably will be loaning out to individuals in the community, investing in long-term bonds, and pursuant to the prudent man law, investing in a stable way so that the people that have CDs and have their money in the bank can earn interest on it. But what have these bankers done? A lot of them. They're investing in venture capital, high-risk investments. As a matter of fact, the Silicon Valley Bank was heavily invested in ESG investments, which are environment, social, and governance investments. This is a violation of prudent man law. They were not investing based on the viability of the investment for the benefit of the stockholders and the account holders. Instead, they were basing it on whether or not the investment was adhering to their climate change agenda. And, of course, that's why the Silicon Bank Bank failed. And then on top of that, Joe Biden trots out there and says, well, we're going to make all of the account holders at the bank whole. Well, there's a problem with this because the FDIC insures you up to $250,000. Well, this bank in Silicon Valley, the average account there was substantially higher than that amount. So basically what Biden's saying is if you're at a large bank, we're going to make you whole above and beyond the $250,000 threshold. So if you happen to have money in a local bank or a credit union, for example, you're not going to enjoy that protection. The desired result is that people transfer their money from the local bank and the credit unions to the federal banks bleeding the local banks. What they're trying to do is basically nationalize the banking system, like they're trying to nationalize everything. You just need to be made aware of this, because on our calls we repeatedly say, right after you've done this exchange, you need to move the money out of the banks. Now, another reason that you want to move out of the banks is because they're creating the central bank digital currency. They're basing it on the fact that it's quote-unquote safe and liquid. Of course, neither of these is the case. It's not safe for a couple of reasons. Anyone watching the news sees that government agencies are routinely hacked, and that could be the case with the central bank digital currency. Then, of course, we have the drumbeats of war going on, particularly since now we have this new alliance between Russia and China, once again courtesy of the Biden administration. Well, any World War III would start with something called an EMP, electromagnetic pulse weapon. In the past, the objective was to go after, they'd say, to cut the head off of the snake in order to make it extremely difficult for an enemy to communicate amongst themselves. But an EMP weapon would basically wipe out our ability to communicate, but that would also wipe out your digital accounts. So that's a bad idea. But assuming the central bank digital currency is the only game in town and that it does function, we've moved the banking system directly into the umbrella of the Treasury Department, and with a keystroke they could basically redistribute wealth. They could withhold taxes from 1099 reporters. They could freeze or confiscate your money if you violated their arbitrary rules. For example, if you exceeded your carbon footprint, if you purchased one too many guns, or if you're someone like myself who deigns to get on air and actually talk about political issues that are diametrically opposed to theirs. So, again, this is another reason to avoid all of that. So what we're looking at today is a situation where the de-dollarization is actually making the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies more likely and happen sooner. But unfortunately, it's not good for the country as a whole, and we're going to need to move out of the banking system. Now, where are we going to go? Well, you need to go to tangible assets, and we've discussed a lot of that. But the way to protect yourself from all of this is by establishing the Family Asset Protection Trust package that we have been marketing for over a decade. Now, for most of that time, we've been marketing the trust to Dinarians prior to what's been going on in this country for the last 18 months. But based on the direction of the country in the last 18 months, establishment of this Family Asset Protection Trust package is going to be a necessity for any American who wants to avoid the high tax, high surveillance state that's being created. You're also going to be able to move substantially away from the central bank digital currency, which is complete and total control pretty much of every aspect of your life. Now, I want to touch on the advantages of establishing this trust package, whether you're a Dinarian or not. First, by establishing this trust package, you're going to preserve your privacy and anonymity. That's because as an individual, you will operate under your Social Security number, but the trust operates under its own EIN number. Now, there are other entities people can establish to provide some level of privacy and asset protection, things like LLCs, sub-S corporations, family limited partnerships. But those are all statutory entities, meaning they are regulated on a state basis. You file with the state has all of the information about the internal workings of those entities, and you will pay an annual fee to the state in order to maintain those entities. However, the trust is completely and totally private. It's not filed with any city, county, state, or federal government. In addition, the Family Asset Protection Trust, an irrevocable trust, operates with the full protection of the Fourth Amendment. That means if you're involved in civil or even criminal issues, the individuals that have filed a complaint, whether, again, it's civil or criminal, will have to go to a court and show cause. They will have to establish that there's probable cause that you've either defrauded an individual civilly or committed some criminal offense. That's a very high bar. Second, this trust will allow you to avoid IRS scrutiny. The activities within the trust would be subject to audit, and as such, it would be very difficult for the IRS and the Treasury Department to get involved. They'd much rather audit individuals that have not established a trust because they're notorious for going after the low-hanging fruit. They could audit 10 people operating under the Social Security number as opposed to going after an individual that has a trust package, a sophisticated trust package like this with legal representation and all of the protections of the Fourth Amendment. Third reason you'd want to establish this trust, whether you're denarian or not. This trust has a special gift sub-trust within it, which not only allows you to gift currencies to family and friends on a pre-RV basis to avoid a federal gift tax, but for those of you post-RV or those of you that don't even have currencies would be able to create life estates to gift things like cars, homes, etc., to friends and family members that would escheat or revert back to the trust when they pass away or they no longer wish to utilize that gift. So these are ways, again, you can gift things to individuals and still have complete control of the asset, whether you're a denarian or not. If you have a substantial amount of wealth, or the day after the revaluation, you're an individual that have a lot of wealth, this trust will not only allow you to avoid the cost and delay of probate, but it will allow you to avoid the federal estate tax, the tax which is assessed in order for your estate to be transferred to heirs. That tax can be as high as 65% of the estate, in excess of $12 million. So that's a very valuable benefit as well. Lastly, this trust provides other protections. In addition to privacy, you will be utilizing something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Essentially, what that means is under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So as an example, you have 10 million dinar, you paid $10,000 for it, you assign the currencies to our trust pre-RV. After the revaluation, and let's just say you get $1 for the currencies. Now you have 10 million in trust for your benefit, but you can't be sued for the 10 million. You can only be sued for the 10,000 because that's all the currencies were worth when you transferred them out of title to the trust. Lastly, this package of trusts allows you to place each asset, a home, a car, a boat, etc., into a separate sub-trust. This strategy is called segregation of assets. What this means is if any litigation were to arise as the result of something within one of these assets, the only thing that would be at risk within the litigation would be that asset, because the other assets are in the separate sub-trusts, which under the law are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the litigation. So whether you're a denarian or not, under the current economic and political situation in this country, the Family Asset Protection Trust Package is the best single thing a person can do, and particularly with the central bank digital currency, you're going to be able to transition to tangible assets which will be able to generate income. Now, that income would be exposed to the central bank digital currency, but only that income. The assets themselves, tangible assets themselves, will be protected within the trust, and because they're in separate sub-trusts, would limit any potential civil liability. So that's basically where we are today. I wish I had more information for you about what's going on in Iraq, although I can say this. Soudani is literally doing everything he can to move forward with the reinstitution of the currency, the de-dollarization of the country, the imminent loading of the ATMs with the small category notes and fills, the coinage as well. They're trying to extend loans from the World Bank so that they can lend money to citizens within Iraq to build the private sector and move away from the centralized government as well. So all of this is moving in the right direction. I see the reinstitution of the dinar in April, possibly during Ramadan, but most likely near the end or even the day of Ramadan for the reasons that I stated. Even if the reinstitution happens in April, a lot of the citizens will probably not go to the bank to do their exchange or limit what they do at the bank, as I said, because of the need at Ramadan to transition a lot of that money to charity and back to the bank. So I don't see that happening. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift subtrust, which can be converted to a standard subtrust at any time, and 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians, it was our determination that that would be too expensive for many of the Dinarians who are, by and large, Joe Lunchbox middle-class Americans. So by simplifying the package, we were able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are a number of ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front. We'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. That's not possible. We do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce the trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the dinar revalues globally, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be able to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be actually less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Again, our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of these currencies for the reasons that I've stated. But even more importantly is, as an American citizen, witnessing the destruction of this country that's taking place, establishing this trust is an absolute necessity. As a matter of fact, I'll even go further and say, if the people in charge today are successful in what they're trying to do, and I'm talking about the digital currency, personally, I don't see how the central bank digital currency can pass muster with the Fourth Amendment. It's a grotesque violation of our privacy, in my opinion, so I don't see how it's going to fly. But with or without the central bank digital currency, the best thing you can do to protect your privacy, your anonymity, your wealth, and your family generationally is to establish a family asset protection trust package. Now, you can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. If you'd like to get our initial no-obligation package, you can go to our website, which is, our email address, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com, or you can contact us by phone through our phone service, which is 307-274-4122. Contact us by by email or phone, we'll be happy to send you our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but again, that's entirely your decision. You can review the package. It has a lot of information about us, about the currencies, about these trusts. If you have any questions, contact us by phone or email. We'll be happy to answer all of your questions, and there will be no consultation fee. But if you are ready to proceed, everything you need is in the package. Once we have your fee and your trust application, you should have your trust package certainly within the next 5 working days and probably within the next 3 working days. And again, we're here to help you in every way. Now, our next call will be certainly next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Have a great week, and we look forward to good things happening very shortly. Bye-bye.